going on, Lindy? Pink Stripe, what's going on? Oh, we're going to talk about it today. Oh yeah, Quifflish, what's up? It's good that you're out and about. Wait till this elevator stops. Yeah, that's good enough. We'll get off on this floor. There we go. Friends, what's going on? Happy Monday morning.
Your wife looks like your bloodline sister, my bro.
Oh my God, Andrew. I got my soundboard back. I'm just playing around. It's good to see you. I noticed, Quillfish, that you are out and about. You're working your muscles and your hips and your joints. That's fantastic news. It feels good to get around, and exercise will make you feel a lot better, no doubt. Let me see. Oh my God. So, there's all kinds of new information coming out in the Jack and Lilly Sullivan case. Namely, most recent people are talking about is Malehya's half-sister. And she alleges, this whole story is a bit, we love new information, by the way, but I'm thinking about this whole story and how it played out. And I'll give her the benefit of the doubt for now. But she's claiming that there were certain substances found in the bathroom after further investigation into some suspicious behavior by the part of Daniel Martel. She alleges this guy was bouncing off the walls because he was on the devil's dandruff, perhaps. Or a substance like it. Harder substances. Good to see you, Prairie. And this came out, I think we were live when it was coming out. So somebody had come in the live chat and was mentioning it. Now that I know that it was more legit than I was giving it credit for at the time, we can talk about it. Oh, it's good to see you, Layla25. Derwood got angry last night on It's a Criming Shame when Janie was called out again for not talking. I've been saying from day one that he's sleeping with her. Yeah. Oh, I love your... you're coming in here with the hard stuff, Layla. That's fantastic. In your opinion, of course. Okay. Oh, maybe Derwood O'Grady is the boyfriend that she was supposed to be with. Listen, the more and more I think about Derwood's story, well, we've nailed it down to a few things, haven't we, here in chat? But I still am so skeptical. The way he portrays the story is so unbelievable. There's more to it. And the fact that he is sitting there in a situation like this tells me that he's either working on the inside or he's completely oblivious. It has no real self-awareness, I guess the best term would be for that. And listen, people have gone... I wanted to go out and take a look at this, hear what other people were saying about it. And there's all kinds of different channels out there talking about the particular situation. And I've got one on the screen in the bottom right. The visual isn't all that necessary, but she brings up a couple of really good points in regards to Derwood O'Grady. And there's a starting point. Everything that he says makes you think, one, he's only getting it from a certain perspective through the information that the suspects in this case have over him. So it's told from a perspective that's already biased unknowingly. And he's sitting there impressing upon a greater audience his own beliefs, and told in a convoluted way that is meant to blind you with bullshit. He's not dazzling us with his brilliance, that's for sure. Layla, why else would he be so offended? Because I don't know, Layla. I mean, it makes you think, but this guy is off the wall. I mean, who is he? What is he? He's got all kinds of names. It's not necessarily that we need to know the guy's name, but why the need to operate in such a way out in public? If not, you're just a little attention whore, or you're there you're working undercover, but like a lot of us out here wouldn't know the difference. Those who are closer perhaps know him already. He wants to be associated with the case so bad. You know, it all stems back. Let's put Derwood aside for a second. It stems back to the information that we're being fed currently, okay? And regardless of what specific Derwood or Darin has said at any one time, he's representing and he's got interest. One, he's related allegedly to Malehya Brooks-Murray. That would automatically give him an in from an outsider's perspective into more personal activity in the background. And in that, he introduces himself as getting to know Daniel, even though his son allegedly has worked with him. All right. And he got to know him and meet him. And at first, he was highly suspicious that he had harmed the children. And the more he got to know, i.e., the more conditioned he got to the suspect's claims at that point in time, the more he bought into it. I'm not telling you one way or the other. I'm trying to keep this conversation centric to the facts that we do know, because we're going to get pretty heavy, and we always love to. And this is the speculation and rumors. Good morning, Taze. Good to see you guys coming, and thank you for joining, by the way. McKenna, good to see you. Jen R. I guess what I'm getting at is I'm spinning back to now. I'm starting to rethink what happened to Jack and Lilly, because it's getting back from the trafficking theory for a moment, and you try to simplify the whole process. The more that you learn about this, the less that you get to trust Daniel. Like, why is Daniel championing whatever this individual says about this particular case at hand? Why is Daniel out there acting the way he is? Is he tweaking? Daniel's tweaking out and trying desperately to make it look a certain way, fabricating a story to deflect any sort of suspicion from him. And this, he loves to get in front of a camera and impress upon a bunch of people who he thinks who are a lot more gullible than he is, that this hold on. I got to take a call. I'll be right back. Actually, shit. No, I'll continue on. I'll call them back a little bit. Oh, shit. I didn't expect to call back till tomorrow, but they called me right back in like an hour. Anyway. Grr. I'll call them back after I'm done here. It's okay. You know how it goes. Interrupted myself. Hey, sweet tea. I'm sorry, everybody. My phone was going off in the background. I'm not distracted at all. I was just trying to get an appointment. I wanted to make the doctor's office aware that they had like 32 pages faxed over in there. Anyway, I'll get back to them. Shauna, yeah, but when they first reported that they had cops around their house for days, I don't think he was getting high with the cops there. Yeah, but it's an effect of the behavior. Like if she's alleging that he's been tweaking for 2 years, it's made an effect upon him, and maybe he's highly paranoid. Super paranoid about anything. Like, what's he doing in the first place? That's supposed to say, I don't think, Sean, this is Shauna saying, that he was getting high and all those cops were around his house for days. Well, we're talking about the circumstances leading up to the children's disappearance. Yeah, I'm skeptical about the story too. Like she's coming and claiming. We're going to take a look at that in just a moment. It's still the information that was being brought forth on It's a Criming Shame, for those of you who are wondering what we're referencing. You know, it's just another person at this moment in time. Another person that claims to be at the end of the driveway, and she's talking about what the fight was really about. Haven't we already been here? So here we're being gaslit again to a degree, or are we? Is she being truthful? You know, don't necessarily buy everything that you're being told at any one moment, especially when it comes to this crew. How about some fucking evidence? You know, I wanted to believe Derwood. I wanted to believe him during that time, that he was coming out with these stories and he was bringing key information. Well, why have the kids been found? Why hasn't somebody come forward and this progressed on their end? And no matter what part of Derwood's story you're referencing, the whole thing, when you align it with the fact that they ended up involving the RCMP and reporting their children missing, it doesn't line up. The only reason for calling them in missing is to cover your own tracks in that sense, or is this allegation of substance abuse in the home a lot more accurate than we have talked about thus far, at least here? You know, I'm in no position, nor is anybody else yet, to be disproving what this gal is saying. This is from her perspective. And I mean, I don't know the dynamic of the entire family relationship. So it just seems bizarre to me that everybody, one, is there so quickly. If these claims, like Daniel claimed that Malehya's mother, Cindy Murray, was there within minutes when she lives an hour and some odd away. How do we know Derwood isn't the dude in the car driving? Like, Derwood has access, and he claims to have access, and what's true and what's not, and probabilities, and he just happens to be there with just a story. First of all, from the perspective of a family who's just been violated, some rando coming into your life like Derwood O'Grady wouldn't be exactly welcoming. Like, who is this fucking weirdo? And why is he's so eager to find out himself what's been going on? What's your kin to children? Why are you so eager to get your hands on kids, boy? So he's not treated with stranger danger in that sense. But he's got an answer each and every way for that in regards to his association with Daniel and his relation to the grandmother, Cindy. So he's Cindy's cousin. Malehya's uncle twice removed. Some weird ass circular family tree type crap. It might not be circular. I just like to say that. Yeah, Sean, I'm starting to really doubt this story about them being rehomed, and this is more of a native thing, and it's their business, and they're just trying to keep it out of the way. That's just a likely story in the circumstance. Nobody is going to okay this sort of trafficking and then turn around and try to portray to the public that this is an acceptable alternative, like a vortex where you can just do this to your kids and get away with it. Which brings me back to the most simple answer, is that one of these two have either done something, or the kids got into some of the substance and there's meat behind this story. Like, what are we to believe? The mentee, well, the thing with Derwood is, instead of protecting Malehya like the rest of her family, he listened to Daniel's family and has his family insight that he can get Derwood is in the middle. Instead of protecting Malehya like the rest of her family, he listened to Daniel's family and has been his... Yeah, I get what you're saying. He's been telling it from a certain perspective. So if we look past that part a little bit, you can understand he's been speaking for Daniel and his perspective, but we don't trust what Daniel has to say at this point. I think that's what we're getting at. Because there's too many questions, and I think there always will be. And of course, you're never going to make anybody happy, even when you give us the information that people seek. You see that quite often. But Daniel, it's not looking good in the, he's admittedly lied several times. Why is it we should believe you this time? Like, it just makes it more difficult for people out in the public to understand what's going on and what it is that you should form your opinion around, right? I wonder what the cops think. If the children were alive, says Shauna, they would have produced them already, because apparently you don't get in trouble for what they did unless something's wrong with the kids. Well, it's safe to say, Derwood, I won't even speak for him. It's safe to say that I don't think Malehya is intending to get any of her kids back in that sense. She's not doing this at the end of the day to be reunited with her family in some sort of odd dynamic like the Apache. This isn't like that. These kids aren't roaming the plains eating raw meat. Yeah, you think, Layla, he's inserting himself on Janie's behalf? Well, he's being awfully elusive. Maybe they are baking some of the Tina back in there in that RV, and that's what she's so protective of in that cupboard. I don't understand why people are. I guess I do understand, but I don't understand why they're so key on this particular cupboard. I don't know where that was said. So apparently there's a cupboard in the RV that Janie didn't want the cops to look in. Okay. It might be something. It might be nothing. Obviously, it wasn't an issue then. Just because she was living in there. I have a hard time classifying that as a house, RV, residence. I don't even know what the hell it is. They've got tarpaulin over the top of it, and it's beat to shit. It's beat up. Skid in the front door. Like, what in the hell is going on in that RV? It looks like something right out of something that Walter White would be associated with. Janie would lie to protect her dusty sons. Is that right? Do you think, Layla? And Derwood is lying for Janie because he is shagging her? Man, I think you're probably in tune a lot more than I am, but I'm thinking that's funny. Oh, maybe. Yeah, nihilism is the only way. People hanging on to the fact that the kids are alive just don't want to face the truth. Parents let their kids down in that sense. Right. There's a lot of that, and that's what the parents in this situation are hanging off of. Derwood O'Grady as well. He's got this fantasy that she's done something just tricky to, just stick it to the man. Fuck no. She doesn't intend to have, she doesn't intend to raise those children. It's like she was running away and just threw them out the car window for everybody else to pick up. And we're looking for two that she's dropped and we can't find. She couldn't have gotten out quick enough. Why? We need to find that out. We need to figure that out. I mean, this substance abuse is just something as well to put back in Daniel's lap to shift the dynamic of the conversation, especially from her perspective. I'm not saying whose side this particular gal is on. I haven't heard her quite yet. I think I'm going to listen to a clip in a moment. But a lot of this is Derwood expressing what he wants to be true rather than what is actually true. And he never reminds you that it's from Daniel's perspective, really. The key piece that they've brought is this claim from Janie, but we've had no confirmation. You think that would be pretty significant, wouldn't you? That's like should be one step forward in this situation. If you're indeed more eager to get the truth out, which the truth in Daniel should always be on his side, so he doesn't really necessarily have to go by whatever they decide behind closed doors at the RCMP. In a theoretical sense. Like if it's affecting you, and it is, because let's not forget, you're one of the primary concerns here. You're the man that was supposed to be watching those kids. So the truth in this circumstance should favor you no matter what the hell is coming out, directed by RCMP or nobody. No, I'm pretty sure that the RCMP would invite a little bit of the truth at any point in time, whether it be public or not, especially when it comes to missing kids, where everybody has clammed up, claiming that they don't want to ruin the investigation. Bullshit. That's just a piece of shit to hide behind in this circumstance. And that comes by way from both parents. If I was in Daniel's position and some broad was doing that to me, I would start my own YouTube channel, come up here 24/7 and tell you all about every little fucking thing in my life until she came out of hiding. And her life. But he's not. He's making these appearances, giving these little drops and answering questions, putting himself in a position of having all of this information that all of these thirsty people want. And he wants to reenact that time and time again. He doesn't want to talk about any fucking situation, or else he would be out here straightening out all of the bullshit that happened that preceded that 911 call. You would be screaming it to the rooftops outside of any sort of hush-hush investigation. That's their business. That's their business. They're the ones that had to do it on the official level. Nothing saying out there that you can't bring it to the forefront, especially in an emergency situation where two kids have just wandered off. All it's been is really people speak. They don't even speak on behalf of Daniel. They should. You think they would. That's the best we can do, is this Darin Geddes guy. It's not hard. It's not hard to take this situation by the horns and direct it. You don't have to okay one iota from the RCMP. You can get on the horn and talk to anybody. You can do it yourself. Upload a video. People will watch it. But you're more apt to protect Malehya in this circumstance, telling me that you're working together to a degree to form this altered narrative, this pseudo-narrative. And wherever the pseudo-narrative takes you, you'll just affirm when you get there. Oh yeah, here we are. That must be what happened here. It's just a mystery. We've shifted blame back on the kids because, remember, they just walked away into that bush. I should say hello to you. Hello to you all. I'm not ignoring my chat. There's Karen Jones. You are trying to understand insane people. No, you're just simplifying it by calling them insane, Karen. They're human beings. I'm trying to understand. You're trying to say that we're doing something that's not, we can't make sense of. No, we'll be able to make sense of it. We just need to figure out what's true and what's not. You're too apt to pass judgment on people based upon God knows what. I like the opposite of that. There's a reason for people's behavior, whether they're tweaking or not, Daniel. Yeah, David, it's amazing that the children still aren't found. Absolutely. I mean, if these kids are hidden somewhere, and isn't all of that just a nice way of saying that you trafficked your own kids? I think so, Darin. I don't buy any of his shit. One, it introduces a bunch of people that he doesn't want to name. He's just got all of this information that's 1,000% correct. Let's listen to a little bit of that. Hold on, I gotta go back. I gotta figure this out. There we go. Let me switch that up. I came across this particular video this morning. It's only 18 hours old from this. I'll share you with the link. This Ninchi true crime. She brought up a really good point. I thought I'd point that out here.
Suspicious person to have a photo of someone or more information to suggest that there was an abduction. In this case, they are young children, certainly vulnerable people, and a vulnerable person alert was issued.
He's made it pretty clear here that if at any time any additional information comes to hand that points towards an abduction, that they could still issue an Amber Alert. So they've told this exact same reporter that they have hundreds of hours worth of video footage. And some of that video footage comes from Gerlock Road. No, it may not come from directly outside the house, but they have footage which will show them any cars that went along that road for the days leading up to the day that the children went missing and for several days afterwards.
So it's the point that she's making, to dovetail a little bit, is that in a longabout way, in regards to the Amber Alert, they're on Garlock Road in a rural area. They have that road being monitored through the video that they have. And through that video, they would have identified the vehicle that came and picked them up. And based off that info, they could have amended the initial claim into an Amber Alert, and that's not being done, which is highly suspect.
So they would have well and truly by now identified any vehicles that did not belong, or any vehicles that may have changed their movement and perhaps spend more time travelling along that road than they usually would, or that appear to have spent excessive time in the vicinity of the property. So you can bet that by now, if any of those vehicles that they've looked at on camera come up as suspicious and come up as having a high likelihood of having transported those children away from the property, we would know about it. There would have been an Amber Alert put out as soon as that information was verified. So when it comes to this Derwood guy, or Darin, or Ronnie the Third, if you know what I'm talking about, then
I wonder if what she calls him Ronnie the Third Isn't Ronnie the brother of Janie in that sense? Ronnie the third? She sounds like she might be suspicious of the relationship as well. The fact that Janie and Derwood might be knocking boots in that nasty old trailer of hers. And in that particular cupboard is Derwood's cupboard. And in Derwood's cupboard is his porn collection. He doesn't want that getting out necessarily, especially that particular day. He had all his oils and massage oils in there.
First of all, that story's been out there for long enough for the Mounties to be well and truly aware of it, so that once again, was that story actually real? We would know about it because there would be an Amber Alert issued saying we have now gained information.
This gal makes a strong point, such a strong point. I mean, there's no way around that. All this is meant to do is put Darin's entire narrative into question, because his entire narrative is based around this Janie story, this claim. Now, the question now comes up is, why does he? And people are suspicious of him being in a romantic relationship with Janie in that sense. This part-time lover, we'll call him. Darin Geddes, the part-time lover. Janie, Karen, how do you know that? She's a postmenopausal wreck. You're so positive. Ronnie is Janie's brother, and the father of Daniel also lives on the property. But back in the woods. Daniel's dad lives further back on the property, way back in the woods. Come on, are you telling me, is this facts? I haven't seen any other home. What does he live out in the woods? How come they didn't go and scour his property? Maybe he lives like a homeless guy out there just to stay away from the old lady. Sean is saying, I feel like she snapped and killed them and he got rid of them. Is that what we're looking at here? Can you believe if that were true, Shauna? You know how crazy it would be for them to go this far? Well, what do you expect a person to do? You expect them to deny it when they're under pressure like this. You don't think he's very smart? And that comes back to him passing the polygraph examination, or saying he was under the influence. He doesn't have normal, reception in that sense. Karen James, yeah, Criming Shame showed it on a map. He lives in a shack way back in the woods. So Daniel's dad's a Sasquatch? Oh my God. Oh shit.
That the children left the property in this vehicle. Chances are they would also know who the driver of the vehicle were. You can bet if there was any credibility to this story, they would have hauled Malehya's ass in and questioned her extensively about the story. They would have also hauled in Daniel's ass and questioned him extensively about the story.
Right. Patty Burns, if Darin really believes all the whack he's coming out with, wouldn't he be in the cop shop insisting on an Amber Alert and spilling his cash to the cops? Well, you would think so. Instead, he's leaving it like a little crumb out here. He's leaving it like a little crumb for the cops to hopefully find and add it. Yeah. The behavior doesn't align with anything that you can think of as an actual situation. It seems like they're covering their tracks. I can see where a lot of people see that now. Yeah, I can see that. That's sad. So the question is this half-sister of Malehya correct? And if she's correct, then how much responsibility does Malehya carry into this codependent, co-addicted, dysfunctional household and its contributing factors to whatever happened to the children that you just had to call in missing? Why is everybody in her immediate coming forth and putting that into question, I wonder? Nobody believes their account of things. Haley is Malehya's Logan, Shauna? Yeah, you got that. Derwood does not want his son to go to jail for rugs. The son is a party buddy of Daniel's. Daniel claims Malehya is on the run from the RCMP.
Clearly, there is no evidence of this story, which basically means it is just that, a story. Were there any evidence whatsoever, there would be an Amber Alert.
That's what I'm getting at there, Sidonia Nasu. They are her kids. If she knew that he was whacked out, she should have got them out a long time ago. Yeah, she seems like an enabler to this sort of lifestyle. Like, there's a lot more to it. Like, at any point in time, you could have removed her from that. You could have removed her from the environment, meaning Malehya, especially when it comes to Cindy Murray. She was there a minute and a half after the kids were reported missing, according to Daniel. Well, why that day? If things were so bad and so toxic and there were substances around that upped the risk level of those children getting into it, of ODing, like it being cut with fentanyl, and then all of a sudden they ingested it and they never woke up again. Well, you guys were preoccupied in your fix. You guys have all the reason to cover up because you don't want to be held accountable for that situation. The question is, if that's what really happened, don't you think that Daniel would have at least went and cleaned up a little bit? Why would he leave drug residue and paraphernalia around if that's what it is, and the cops are going to be there searching? Like, he wouldn't have made a little bit of effort? Or is she stating that he brought it in after it and he's just carrying it on his person? And like, and second of all, how do you know, honey? How do you know what you're looking at? Shauna says Derwood needs to get off the internet and shut up. Yeah, he's just a little chatty Cathy, isn't he? He just loves to weave and fabricate and tell you all the things that are facts. Oh, could you imagine all of the information he says that he's protecting in this scenario? Getting in front of a bunch of people and saying that. You don't believe anything Daniel has to say? Haley already said that didn't happen. They didn't find drugs. They fought and accused him. That's why he fought. And she walked those comments right back almost instantly. So you don't know? Really? Haley already said that didn't happen. So Haley is refuting the claims that she initially came out with. Haley already said that didn't happen. They didn't find drugs. They just fought and accused him. That's why they fought. She walked those comments right back almost immediately. Okay. So she's up telling a bunch of bullshit on the internet. This is going back 10 days ago. Some statements of Derwood O'Grady right here.
For someone to get a shovel
Hidden in
the
fog.
rain at night to fill in a ditch and potholes indicates a sense of urgency, possibly a threat of flooding, but it's typically is something that someone would do if they felt they needed to do it right then at that time. Yet he is specifically undermining this whole thing, but yet it's the whole reason he explains for the boot print. For some reason, O'Grady feels the need to emphasize that this was a little ditch and she was just filling the side of the driveway a little bit. Also, too, the point where he says that Janie told him all about it, pointed it out, he's very clear about that. He's very matter of fact about that. This is what happened. This is what she told me. In fact, she even showed me. So he is emphasizing here a confirmation that not only is he saying this, but hey, Janie actually did this.
And where the boot pit came from, that driveway's harder than nails. But the night before Janie, there was a pothole and a little ditch on the far side of the driveway, and Janie herself was out with the shovel the night before, filling that little ditch and pothole in, and it was raining the night before, and the gravel and it's muddy gravel. It's not really good clean stone and that, and it was wet, and that's why the little one boot print got sunk in the mud right at the edge where she was fixing the driveway a little bit. And then she showed me it, told me all about it, pointed it out.
In the next part here, he's talking about Janie when Jamie came out of the RV. There is a piece that's missing here, though, because if you recall from the recording, he had been talking why she has come out of the RV. But then there's a very odd pause. It's almost an uncomfortable pause where you think the recording has stopped, but it isn't. It's O'Grady doing something, checking information or trying to remember. We're not really sure, but there is a unnaturally long pause. Also, too, this is a vital piece of information that O'Grady is relaying, specifying and stating that this whole period here of Janie coming out and seeing Malehya without the kids and the kids being in the woods and then Daniel coming out of the trailer is O'Grady's proof that Daniel didn't kill the kids.
Right. Which, okay, his story is fairly strong in that sense at the time, but it doesn't hold any weight at this point in time. And that can't be any proof of Daniel not doing anything to harm his children, especially when there's no other evidence of anything else. She brings up one hell of a good point.
Information that O'Grady is relaying, specifying and stating that this whole period here of Janie coming out and seeing Malehya without the kids and the kids being in the woods and then Daniel coming out of the trailer is O'Grady's proof that Daniel didn't kill the kids. So this is a pretty huge piece in O'Grady's testimony.
And so she said that's when she came out, she said she knew, she heard the kids. She knew the kids were supposed to be there. And she came up to Malehya, and Malehya was standing there with Meadow on her arm, looking at the phone. And Janie looked at Malehya and said, well, where's the kids? Because she knew the kids were there. She just heard the kids. Where's the kids? And Malehya sort of looked stunned. And then just wait. And the next comment she made was, let me see if I get this accurate. Okay, how long have they been? Well, where's the kids? Oh, she said they're in the woods. Malehya said to Janie, they're in the woods. Now, Janie swears to this. It's all documented.
Right.
They're in the woods. Well, how long were they gone? 20 minutes, she said.
When she left the RV to come out and see Malehya, she knew the kids were supposed to be there because she had heard them.
You know, Derwood O'Grady has this excavating company. How do we know that he wasn't the dude that dug the hole to bury the kids? That he wasn't working somewhere on the property with his backhoe, making love to Janie on his breaks?
But here's the interesting point. She then asks Malehya, where are the children? The response is, in the woods. The next question I'm confused about, because O'Grady says that Janie asks Malehya, how long have they been gone? To which Malehya responds, 20 minutes. If Janie had heard the children when she was in the RV, why would she need to ask Malehya how long the children had been gone for? The other point worth noting is that O'Grady states that this period is so very important to him because this is the entire reason why O'Grady knows that Daniel did not unalive the children. But yet, he says, the version is different between Daniel and his own, and there may in fact even be a little bit of an error there.
So there's where then Daniel came running out. Now there's a little mix up here in Daniel's memory and mine. I don't know whether he was sleepy or I got the idea, but I checked with Janie two times on this so I could get it right in my head. So anyway, long story short, and maybe a little error in there somewhere, was that was my main finishing proof that Daniel never killed the kids. They were there alive, around 8:30. But no, it was later than that. They were there about Janie, and Janie's got this timeline all documented on her phone. She was that smart.
This whole next section just simply doesn't make any sense to me. He states that Janie was very smart and documented all of this on her phone as to the timelines. Why she would do that at that time, not realizing that the children had gone missing, I don't know. However, we can just simply take his word for that. The other piece, though...
So people keep talking about Janie denying the cops searching. That mean a whole lot more. That's one in the... If you put that in line with Daniel and Malehya fabricating a story and covering up some wrongdoing or negligence, they neglected their children to death in this scenario. I mean, that's strong as well, and he's making it look like Janie, they're sitting there playing he said, she said to a degree, separated. Like, that would be an extenuating circumstance that might tip the scales into breaking up at that point and having to, out of necessity, stay apart in order to get this bullshit story over on the public, not get caught up in surveillance, because how it's going to be hard to stay together and not talk about all of this and it come out. The only way that you could dip around the surveillance is to separate yourself and remain quiet and play pretend. Slim, why wouldn't Janie assume the kids didn't get on the bus for school? Because of the time. That's my... I don't know the answer to that, but I'm just suggesting maybe the time that she saw them, which was what? They would have got picked up a lot earlier, I thought, than that. Because school would have been starting by the time that she saw them. But that's a good question. I don't know. Shauna, so knowing that he owns excavating stuff and stuff like that, your mind is wandering? Yeah, he's got a backhoe. It's just a dude with a backhoe and a tractor. And all kinds of reasons to be in all kinds of gravel pits around the area. Mandy, so clearly they cover for her. Yeah, there's a big degree of trying to cover for her. There's all of this emotional attachment. Like, for a dude that's just been scorned in the worst of ways, you're walking around the internet asking people not to attack Malehya. Well, why wouldn't they fucking attack her? She's lost her kids. She looks like the world's worst mother. She's going to get it. Why are you white knighting for this evil temptress that you're vilifying and suggesting that she's knowing a whole lot more than she's leading on? As opposed to you, douchebag. If she knows what's going on, you have to know what's going on, whether you realize it or not. So you better be singing like a canary. I don't believe anything out of this circumstance. The fact that they keep wanting to introduce these substances probably tells me that there's some sort of truth behind it. Hey, Susan B. You think Janie would have asked why they weren't going to school instead of how long were the kids in the woods? She didn't ask that. She didn't ask that, David. I think that's just the way it was stated. He misspoke. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. She was standing by the road and said she had not seen the kids in 20 minutes. What the hell was she doing? Just standing there playing on the phone? Talking to her brother Ronnie. Or no, talking to somebody on the phone using Daniel's phone, according to Daniel. You know, it's interesting too that there's still no real... So, we're going to have to scale out a little bit. It's interesting that there's no, at this point, it's even more convoluted with this he said, she said. It's not more clear as to what went on. It's even more confusing because they continue to play this online game of back and forth. Well, we're immersed in that, talking about it, of course, but you're seeing it play out through this perspective where it takes the possibilities back and forth like a ping pong. And these individuals are skirting surveillance in that sense by going through the motions of breaking up. They were probably really not together in the first place anyway, their partner. If you got your girl referring to you as a partner in front of the media on camera, something's coming. And his best, he says in front of everybody that he doesn't know why that's just weird to him. It's just all weird. Like, this guy's emotionally immature. Like, you don't have anything to say in regards to that. Just, it's almost like they're playing back and forth. Like, he's just feeding off of what she does and he loves going with it. He can float that because he's lying. He's looking for some sort of narrative, and he's letting the people that approach him write it for him. Because he's not really added any sort of clarification to anything. There's no clarity to this whatsoever. Just even more, either you fucking trafficked them or you did something and hid them. Even more so now. Because nobody's believing that they wandered off. So they're really hiding behind, almost hiding in plain sight, because they both have denied really. Wow, I shouldn't say, we haven't heard from Malehya, but really, it's out that the kids didn't wander off. That's the key takeaway. The kids just didn't wander off like you made mention. So, what really happened? So when you get to that question, the flow chart splits into about 25 different things, all based off of what Darin and Daniel here have claimed on social media. Like Daniel affirms some of these claims, like he knows Derwood. Derwood's a part of the loop. So does Malehya. It seems to me that these fools are all working together to pull the wool over everybody's eyes, and his stories are to sway public opinion, which helps them in real time. And there's no real magic, crazy, trafficking of kids. They really were negligent, and the kids got into some fent and died while they were sleeping with Meadow in bed at 10 o'clock in the morning. But it actually didn't. It happened probably a lot earlier than that. Because there's no way we can verify what was going on up until they claim their timeline begins. And that timeline is highly suspicious at this point in time. Like, we should almost disregard it. We know about when the calls came in. But anything that they say, like, you can't take anything Daniel says to be fact. Why? Why is it so hard? Because he's admitted to lying? Admitted lying for the love of Malehya? He's still, when he first came out, he's still playing this "I want you back" bullshit stick. Dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? Almost seems disingenuous, pretentious. But for the simple reason of it wanted to fool you. It's really easy to fool you into making him think that he's just this love fool. What are you saying, Emily? Dan didn't know they turned on him at first, so he white knighted for her. He loved her. Possibly. That's what we're led to believe because we're being fed the information a certain way. But it might not be a factor at all. We're just kind of making that observation because it's funny. Because he does seem like a little love fool bitch. He's a little punk. Oh, baby, I love you so much. Come on back. I've got another 8-ball. Let's see. But it's known now that the entire first week was a giant onslaught of Malehya's entire camp trying to blame Dan to the RCMP. But then Dan passed the lie detector. The lie detector isn't going to be viable in a circumstance where there's substance abuse at hand. And this is a reoccurring allegation that comes up. Whether there's truth to it or not, I'd probably err to the side of probably. Like something's going on. It wasn't exactly a beautiful place. It wasn't exactly a lovely place to live in that circumstance. Yeah, we don't know that she passed anything. You're right, Malehya. But they could pass a lie detector in that sense, based off of different reasons. It's not set in stone. It just gives them a direction, a tool, right? Hold on. So this is back to It's a Criming Shame. This is Darin on the phone.
First Nations people do go missing and under the radar and that type of thing here in the U.S. because of those kind of laws. Now, I definitely have to fact check it. But yeah, so I didn't have a question, Derwood. I just wanted to say that if they are here, it might be because. Oh, go ahead, Sonny.
No, because I know he wants to get going because he doesn't want to be on.
I'm going to put this on speakerphone, see if I can hear you.
He's not done planting all of this false hope in everybody's minds. Because that's what you're doing, Darin. Your main job is to plant all kinds of false hope out here in the public's mind that the kids are still alive and being hidden, and that the people that have them shouldn't hurt them. Although that potential exists, that's why you're warning them. Like, you're all over the place, bro. You're all over the place when it comes to that. It's hard to believe anything at this point that Darin has to say, sadly. If there was a car that picked those kids up that day, why isn't there an Amber Alert? Why wasn't it made known? Because of all the video camera footage that they obtained and went through. You think that would have been the first primary target, Janie's account. And why, if that was Janie's account that day, did the investigation not go in that direction? If that was Janie's account, who was pretty much an eyewitness to the last moments of the children, how come that isn't a primary fact in the situation at this point in time? Is it simply because they don't know? The RCMP, and they're playing a game? I don't think so. No, I think it would have looked a lot different, in my opinion. We will know someday. We will know that. We will know the answer to that in a factual manner. We can only speculate now, though, because it's all happening. Like, this Derwood O'Grady's frustrating in a lot of ways. If you're coming out with information there, Sunshine, if you're coming out with information, you can self-censor the details that would violate any sort of privacy issue that is of concern. Instead, Derwood really sells it all out, and instead of making note of that, making note that he's withholding names in that circumstance because of privacy, he's telling you that he knows for 100%, and he goes into the trying to convince you wholeheartedly by making these impossible claims. Ironclad, 1,000% sure. Of what? What the fuck is this guy 1,000% sure of? Shouldn't you think that you should start with that? So that way, while you dissect it along the way, everybody can already relate to that baseline? Instead of leading people around with a carrot, Derwood, is what you did and are doing. You're eager to get to be a part of a situation like this by making claims that you're related to everybody involved. You're inbred to a degree. And you've got interest on both sides of the family, and you know all of this personal information. Unbelievable. Yeah, Bonnie Randall. It smells like somebody that's helping two family members, because you don't get credit for and by the people that have been deceased, and it only matters for the people that are living in the moment. So your solid in your favor goes a lot farther when you're helping two people cover up for the sake of keeping them out of prison. That way you can hold that over their heads for the rest of their lives and benefit from it. That's what you would expect from an individual like Derwood, who's just so eager to share all of these fantasy details. It's more in line with building a narrative, a false narrative out there to deflect any sort of suspicion away from either parent at any one time by planning things in a nice way You're doing evil, Darin. That's evil. You're embellishing the truth. If anything that Darin said was factual, especially when it comes to Janie's identification and the alternative theory about watching those kids walk out to the road in that moment, there would be an Amber Alert. There would be a reason to put it out. You know what an excavator can do, especially in the hilly reaches of a place like Nova Scotia? You can move big rocks with it. You dig a little hole, fire it on. You could be in the area. You're probably already back there working. It's a logging area in the back around his little home there. There's all kinds of reasons for Darin to be back there. They're already well ahead of the game and trying to point the finger at one another. They'll probably be doing that right through until court. Whenever that will be. I do believe that Derwood knows a lot more than anybody else in the circumstance. That's because he was already, inside. He's already in the loop, so to speak. Karen Jones, how do I like Derwood's philosophy of child rearing? I don't know. Like, by the way, what does he expect? Does he expect these kids to come back into the family's loop in this circumstance? Good luck with that happening. That's not going to happen. They're not going to just allow you, especially after what you guys have done. So your behavior speaks a lot more than your claims in that circumstance. There's no real reason for Malehya to be on the run and throwing her kids out the window as she's doing it. Why is she doing that? As you paint it in the nicest way possible. Probably because her grandma Cindy bakes you some cakes maybe sometimes. Who knows? You're doing a favor for the family to make it look so it's not so difficult for them to go out each day and not be ashamed of what's gone on with Jack and Lilly here. That's your real primary motivator. And you're a disgusting son of a bitch, Derwood O'Grady. What a greedy son of a bitch. He's an emotional vampire is what he is. He's a demon. You have no interest in where Jack and Lilly are. Your interest is covering up for the people who did something to Jack and Lilly. Absolutely. The last people to be seen with them. Who all of a sudden out of nowhere don't want to be held accountable for anything, including the children that was left. So all of these terms have already been thrown out there. And the social workers at CAS will have seen that. And that's what's making Daniel have to pass certain tests before he can see his daughter Meadow again. That he wants just to immediately put out there. He puts his baby on film. He puts himself beside his own baby, smiling like he's some sort of somebody in this circumstance and not a fucking piece of shit. You're not out of the piece of shit woods by any means, Daniel. Look at what the fuck is going on around you. And time again, this ass clown goes around the people who get in contact with him through Facebook Messenger and are eager for any sort of information that benefits them who are artificially pleasant to this scumbag. You're going to be a key contributing factor to whatever happened to those children, you cocksucker. Do you understand me? We just have to figure out how much. The fact that you're out here trying to Derwood with the hero complex, the savior complex, mixed with Daniel's best wishes and putting all the blame on this crazy chick that he couldn't wait to move into his house and raise her kids for. You almost impaled yourself. You almost slipped on a rock and killed yourself. Fuck, so did I 20 times before I came in this room, by the way. If you want to look at it that way. But I'm not that much of a narcissist. This asshole isn't out of the woods at all. His story is hanging on a thread. And his best hope is that people buy into the fact that they were somehow rehomed by anti-establishment natives on any one reserve in the Northeast. I'm pretty sure somebody would have spotted them if they especially were being transported in about the time that they were on CTV News all across Canada. Somebody that they're not going to go into any one, they're going to be going down the Trans-Canada Highway. That's a high-risk environment. You get pulled over for speeding on that mofo. You don't think the cops are looking for two kids? Especially that are probably on the move? It was an international story. How do you figure that they just looped out of that one? Your fucking story hangs on a thread. And it's based off of this dude who does your talking for you. That tells me that you're fabricating a story. You're fabricating a narrative. Or else the truth in this circumstance would be so important to you that only you could be able to deliver it at any one point in time. But that's just me. That's just me talking.
Sure. I just wanted to go to Charmaine. Charmaine, did you have a question for Darin?
There we go. What's this?
Let's see. I'm asking Charmaine. No? Okay.
I do not. I have many for you later, but no, I do not.
Okay. Kent, do you have 1 second? Sorry.
I'm trying to get
Darlene,
the
you.
voice clips in here of Darin O'Grady.
1 second,
Darin. That's why
Darin.
we're looking at this.
Second.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, thanks, Darlene. Thank you so much. Okay, Kent, did you have a question for
Man, I was muted. Muted there. I was just checking that button, by the way. Yeah, that's working. That mute button's on. Perfect. That was just a test. Let me see what you're saying in chat. Recollect my thoughts. I have to close this poll. What does the poll say? Do you believe anything Derwood claims about his investigation into where the kids disappeared to? Got 75 votes. Thank you guys very much for joining, by the way. We got 23% saying yes. 48% saying no. And 29% saying he's involved somehow. Well, isn't he involved in the conspiracy to cover up right now? He's actually carrying out the crime that we're wondering about in real time when we listen to him talk. Because if he, in fact, is full of shit in all of this, then he's helping the probable guilty parties in this circumstance. So he would be involved. All right? This motherfucker is involved in this because he's insisted on being involved. Pardon the hard MFers. Maybe I'll stay away from those ones, but I get carried away in my mind here. All right? But you know where I'm coming from. Hey, Quillfish. That's funny. Darin is a conspiratorist. Do you know what? That makes Karen Jones more right than anybody this entire time. This Karen Jones, who's public enemy number one in all of the streams that want to pump up the smoke and hopium, and she's the only one holding this Darin Geddes accountable in the live chat. You remember that? And I'm thinking, I bet you, see it? If I can got my eye, I'm saying there's something about this Karen Jones that is hitting home, right? And it's probably the fact that it's the only person. People were just eager to let Darin talk without any accountability. And the entire time in the live chat, Karen Jones was being, removed and blocked in some places for her objectivity, we'll call it. Oh, isn't that always the way? But it's noted. I remember that, Karen. God bless you. Yeah. I don't know. We'll figure that Karen Jones out at some point in time, in the near future. How is it that you know all of this stuff? It's like the all-knowing in this circumstance. Is it somebody's sock account? Of course it is. Yeah, Shay, your mom's been following this case, and I found her to watch you instead of the others she was watching. I like everybody. I like to try to get everybody in. Dolly so far has been surprisingly objective in all of this. He's grown some. I like that. Because I like some of the calls that he gets in. People, anytime that you can get an opportunity to hear what people have to say out there, even though it's very difficult sometimes in the moment, it's always worth listening to. I've liked that format anyway. And I'll never get past the funny shit that he pulled in Savannah, Georgia. That was funny stuff, in my opinion. It was crazy. I want to. That's why I subscribe to him. I want to see that again. He's got to go boots on the ground. I like Dolly boots on the ground. He makes it entertaining. I give him that. I like it. Let's see, really, Layla. I think everybody else, listen. Sunny's done a good job. Yeah, you think Sunny's too nice in that sense? Well, she has to be, because you have to overdo it. So the reason that she might come across like that is you have to overdo it. You have to have somebody that overdoes the niceties in that circumstance. It's a skill. She doesn't necessarily mean it. It's just important to say, to put the guests at ease. You are offering up a segue that is going to be family friendly. So often the only thing left that you're able to do is just sound like you're blowing smoke up people's asses all the effing time. My last live, we couldn't even monetize, and we didn't even watch anything. They didn't want to monetize it because of how we spoke about the case in that circumstance. So, she has brought up critical issues. I think that's fantastic. And Belinda Gray has been there since day one. And, ultimately she doesn't believe the kids are with us anymore in that circumstance, sadly. Should I say it that way? She thinks the worst possible outcome in this circumstance. She doesn't have hope, which tells me more than the people who are bringing up these claims, sadly, because you want that to be true. I wanted that to be true. This story by Janie. We've never heard anything from Janie. It's just this person that another douchebag introduced in light of this story that paints a completely different picture of the scenario at hand at a time where people's minds are most vulnerable. He's a con man. I gotta close this out so I can see my chat. Let me close this out. So I still don't know what the hell. Should I say it that way? No. Let me see what you're saying down there. Let me see what you're saying. I hope Dolly comes here to Canada and goes out there. I believe Belinda, she makes sense. Yeah, I think so. She gave a fairly important, accurate account. She said it without directly saying it. And that came through Sonny's. Like, they've been skeptical of everybody, and that says a lot about the channel. I got a lot of respect for Sonny because of that, no matter what exactly she says. I appreciate the information in that sense. Like, they do a pretty good job. You've just got to, put yourself through it and know why she's doing it. It's not because you have to acknowledge it in that way in order to be family friendly. When asked where does this road go, Darin replied, "I've been living here all my life and it hasn't gone anywhere." Where is here, do you mean? How far away do you live from Darin, Karen? Darin? I don't know what that dude's name is. I don't trust it worth a shit. But Daniel does, which automatically, really in people's minds, on the surface, it's like a fake out. Fakes you out a little bit. Because Daniel is there saying, 100% in chat after all of these claims that Daniel's making. I don't know how we can believe Daniel, unfortunately. Fuck. Which only really indicates their own culpability, both of them. They're both equally culpable in this circumstance. And when we figure out what you guys did, oh shit. You guys are going to be equally held responsible for this situation. It's not going to be Malehya's problem. It's going to be Daniel's problem as well. I'm certain of it. Anybody else? Am I wrong? If the worst case scenario happened. And that's really how this Darin Geddes approached things. He said, I came highly suspicious of the one thing that he's there to deflect away from. I was so highly suspicious of that Daniel and Malehya hurt their kids. I had to get involved, and as soon as I did, I found out. The more I got to learn about Daniel, the more I realized that he didn't murder those kids, which is a good thing if you're Daniel, but it's not such a great thing if you're still the missing children, because they can still have been, when you introduce this scenario with there being illicit substances in the house and children around, more and more you see the headlines of that being a factor in a lot of crimes, sadly. Is this just going to be another statistic in that sense? If you were to measure by everything else that's neglected around the place, you could see where that fits here. You are not taking care of your responsibilities. Therefore, the kids are rooting around in the cupboards trying to look for their own breakfast and own something to eat because you're not up and ready and getting it ready for them. They could very well easily have put something, got into something that somebody else who was partying in your kitchen up into the cupboard, and they reach up in there and just touch it. And the drug supply is so tainted at this point in time, it's just a matter of time. I'm pretty sure that you're not getting the high-end stuff. You're probably getting stuff that's cut. So all the kid has to do is get into it. Like, you wouldn't even think twice if there was something up there. You wouldn't even know about it. And that's the risk. So that's how easy it is. That's just a simplified version. But people have introduced this time and time again since the very beginning. And Daniel has denied any sort of substance abuse. But why wouldn't you? Of course you're going to deny it. Why is his family so adamant about it? Yeah, it's just another way of pointing blame back and forth from Malehya's side to Daniel's side, if you look at it that way. But it's just this key word coming up again. Daniel said, shut up your effing kids, and she did. It's his fault. He told her to. Karen Jones, you think so? Like a Brittany Gosley type of scenario? Isn't that her name? Remember Brittany Gosley, that redhead? Her and her trailer trash husband went into the sheriff's department to report their kids missing in person. And the cops shook them apart right there. Tripped them up on their stories and got their admission to them. They were teaching their kid a lesson and ended up running him over and then dumping his body over a bridge tied to like a cinder block rock. You think that's what's occurring here? I don't know. Fuck. That would be the reason for their story. Maybe they're... I don't know if that's the same. Malehya is like Scarlett O'Hara and Gone with the Wind, says Karen. Tomorrow is another day. She's trying to live her life, girl. What's your problem with Malehya? Malehya has to get on, even though her kids are no longer around. She's trying to live her life. Could you even imagine being that person who's stating that on her behalf? Oh, fuck. You don't want that smoke. You don't want that shit coming your way. I couldn't imagine even saying that, number one, but being that person. Especially, it's only 2 months after. That's wrong. It is wrong. But there are some really uncaring parents out there. Like with Malehya distracted, he's so key to blame it on postpartum depression when it's in fact, probably the fact that you're keeping your old lady high all the time and it's affecting her. Oh my God. Norbeaster, she's a twit. I think you're right, man. She is. She's a bit of a nut. Well, think about it. Fuck you. She's just abandoned her entire family in that sense. Bailed out of life. She's checked out, cashed out. Gave her kids up. Never to see the kids again. So whatever happened, she's prioritizing her unaccountability ahead of children's lives already. Like Meadow's entire future, she just sold right out. Just like that. Absolutely she did. You just gave up. That's shocking. That's totally contrary to anything or any sort of sympathy. Like it doesn't demonstrate to anybody that you're concerned about this situation and wanting to keep your family together. You've just like booted them to the wind. You abandoned them. This isn't Malehya out in front of the cameras trying to straighten everything out. Like, this is a situation that just got way out of control, like Darin Geddes is claiming. Darin Geddes is really telling everybody that she's decided to go about rehoming the kids her own way and it's gotten out of control. Like, what kind of bullshit is this asshole trying to sell us? He's really dumbing down child murder, isn't he? Just for the sake of a little bit of airtime. Karen Jones says, I'm just sitting here going, Malehya just wants to get on with it, find a new meth man, and rescue him by having a baby. Makes sense if you're a Scarlett O'Hara. She's a baby farmer. She thinks she's an MK Ultra operative. And she's farming out babies and shipping them off to be trafficked and utilized by the elites. Why no appeal to people who have taken them and come forward? Exactly. If they were in a safe place, let's just in theory say that the kids were in a safe place at this point in time. There's no reason that the people couldn't come forward and say, I want, out of the, I want, in this case, what would you say? Immunity from prosecution. But my primary goal is to let you know that the kids are okay and they'll be living with us now. And this is the reason why. Why the reason to be hush-hush if that was the case? There's no reason to go under the radar, especially that it's all out in the media and there's a bit of a problem, as you can see. They want everybody just to take their words for it. They just take our words, trust us. Everything's okay, everybody. Isn't that exactly? It feels like the Megan Boswell situation in a way. I went and rewatched all of her interviews and things, and that girl was she didn't have a problem at all lying to that camera, man. I wouldn't think that Daniel does either. It's a lot easier to have one person there talking about something, anything, while the other half tries to get the hell out of, the situation ASAP. It's a lot easier to maintain a certain narrative in that sense, instead of being beside each other when you have to fabricate. And you're just going to screw up. You're going to get caught. Yeah, you're right. The 150K should have looked after that, or down to the probability, at least. Yeah, for 150 grand. Yeah, you probably would be putting them. You probably call an Uber and send them to the police station and go and collect the 150K. Probably. That's partially the reason for putting it out there, to cover that what if. I would imagine. Let's hear this son of a bitch. Whoop, it's not this one.
Darin, before we let him go. Kent. Let me unmute you, Kent.
You're mute. Yeah.
Am I muted?
Oh my God, yes, but you're very loud. Okay, 1 second.
Yeah, Lilani Simon, Patricia.
What? Do you have a question for
Darren? Yes, Darren. I would like to know if you think that the RCMP will be able to move forward on this with this information. If they get it from somebody, will they be able to?
So this is a confusing one. That's a great question. Should it be true? But the problem is, if it were true, the RCMP, he says, knows all of this information already. Well, why doesn't the investigation reflect that? Janie was there the day, her account that day is the same account, presumably, that you're approaching us with. Why didn't the cops already detail that and issue the Amber Alert a long time ago? That's a key detail that breaks apart his entire narrative. And that was thanks to that gal this morning I watched. I don't want to steal her valor, but everybody was skeptical of that to a degree.
Move forward and at least tell the general public.
And
listen,
Letitia, Norbeaster, Letitia Stott. That poor situation. She is as hard of a liar in front of that camera. Oh my God. She knew how effective it was too. She utilized it. Yeah, that's a really good one to bring up. Daniel talking about, I went over there in that bush. Look at myself sacrificing all of this. I almost killed myself. I almost impaled myself and slipped on a rock and split my head open. Almost died. I was into several creeks, several places up to my waist. I could have died. Look at all I'd done. That's crazy. Malehya's a bold ass liar, you're saying, Karen Jones? Yeah, I'm with you. Stouch. Yeah, stock. I'm probably mispronouncing it. I can never figure it out in the moment. Lucretia. It's a fucked up name. She is like evil. That is so scary. Was Letitia on the internet in the beginning, involved in all of this? You can watch that one for about 8 hours, can't you? In that particular situation, when she got in front of the local news, she called the news and wanted to address everybody. And the interviewer from the local news crew said that after the first time that they went through, and this was her in front of the camera pleading to everybody to calm down on social media, in that sense, she did the take two different ways. One she appealed, the other one, the second take, she cried in. Which tells you the level of manipulation by her part. She's trying to manipulate the narrative. But there was so much. To that scenario. Like there's 8 hours of... She wouldn't admit to anything, even with the FBI profiler in that little soundproof room with the one-way glass. That's like a four-hour interview. And at no point was she agreeing to anything at any point in time. She was hard against it. In the face of such blatantly obvious, there's with that poor Gannon, the blood stain. She couldn't have gotten herself out of that one. The blood stain, the fresh blood underneath the mattress. But I mean, she just flipped and took out all of her anger. She had such resentment over being there, and even her Facebook posts were making it look like, in an inappropriate manner too, that Gannon's mother was dipped out of her life and left all of the responsibilities to her, and she ended up holding that against Gannon, in my opinion. But you could see that, and she took out all of her anger on that poor boy. While his dad was away, he was in the military, in the army, right? If my memory serves me correctly. That's such a horrible story. Yeah, she was worried about how it came across, Miss K. You're right. That's what it was. Yeah, and then ended up... yeah. That's so horrible. And then it gets good. I remember seeing it, but once you know the entire story, obviously, it's a lot more interesting to see her pull that off in the back of the cop car like she's crazy, and she attacks the driver, trying to... She's got fight left in her in that circumstance. She is one evil woman. Logically evil in that sense. Complete psycho. Amity. Malehya stopped parenting Jack and Lilly properly, and Daniel was picking up the slack. The kids misbehave with Malehya, behave with Daniel. She just found Meadow easier because he only cares about herself. I don't think any of them had a clue in that circumstance. Daniel can't even find anything good to say about her. It's hard to at this point in time, but he's making it look like he's being set up. How could that be so if he's a part of that household at any point in time? Depends what's gone on with the kids, but it's difficult at this point in time to go with this Darin Geddes narrative and these key details that he wants out there. It hasn't picked up any traction. Like when you think about it, if it were true, it would steer the course of the investigation in a completely different manner. Therefore, it probably isn't true. That's true, Karen Jones.
Know where the kids are. We won't be saying anything more. We know the kids are safe. and go from there. Do you think that will happen?
I definitely think that'll happen.
Okay.
That'll happen. But, I'm not very good to the RCMP, am I? As far as I'm concerned, they're stupid and they're slow, but they'll get there. Now they'll get there. And one thing about it is,
the way he talks, with the way in the placing of where he puts himself in this story is so far ahead of the RCMP. It makes you wonder if he's not involved, and he's signaling to all of that. Like the little control freak that he likes to be with the savior complex. He wants the accreditation that comes along with being in the position that he is, it sounds like. Like, don't you think that it would be more important that the RCMP knew all of this and they were headed in the right direction and those kids were picked up by now, rather than you getting in front of a bunch of people claiming that the kids are safe and it's just a few days away and it's almost sorted itself out and here's what's really going on? Fuck you, Darin. What an idiot. You're coming up with all of this alternative narrative on behalf of this, in my opinion, makes Daniel and Malehya look far worse and far more guilty because of the level of bullshit that he's coming across with. Because he's really not telling us anything other than this whole story around Janie. Everything else is just lip service. It's bullshit, nonsense, useless information, stuff we already know or suspect. And in that, you're putting it in a nice way. At what part does this have a really negative connotation to it? Darin spins this entire story as it's a misunderstanding. There ain't no misunderstanding when Malehya's running down the road, getting rid of her kids every step of the way and bailing out of life.
I'm not going to give them any of the information I know because I had to make a trade today.
So Derwood O'Grady just claimed that he's not going to give the RCMP any of the information that he knows because he just had to make a trade today. That tells me that he's working on behalf of the people or individuals that are responsible for whatever happened to Jack and Lilly, that hold culpability in this situation. And you're in possession of all of this information and you're withholding it from the police, especially, which is an admission to a crime. You're admitting to a crime right there, pal.
And they don't want me to draw more attention to my family much longer. So I'm very glad that this came when it did.
Yeah.
That I can put an end to this for myself and my family.
Doesn't it sound like somebody who has a couple kids he's keeping? Like, what is it so important there, Derwood O'Grady, that people are threatening your life because of the information that you have, or how you're placing yourself with having all of this key information to the whereabouts of two kids who are missing? Like, everything else after this claim is buyer beware. Like, how are you to take and come back on these statements? How are you supposed to ignore these statements and still take what this guy says at face value? It's bullshit. Why did she immediately hire a criminal lawyer, Shauna? Is he a criminal lawyer? That's a good question. Because she is trying to hide away, not say anything. You just can't see Janie lying to the cops about hearing kids? I guess if Jamie... How do we know all of this story is even correct, though? That's the point, Emity. Like, we only know that because of the claims by way of Darin and Daniel. Nothing else. They're unverified. And it's just if that story was true, then we would have and see some sort of result. Like, in effect, they would have amended the initial order and issued an Amber Alert and given you the vehicle information that they were in. So if you knock that out of the equation, what do we have left? We have the fact that Daniel and Malehya covered up the deaths of Jack and Lilly and still are, with this ever-evolving story of facts that come out day by day, week by week, that could have came out 3 weeks ago. Why didn't we know about them at a different point in time, a more chaotic and less controlled part of the whatever happened part of this particular story? If this was indeed true, we would have known about it on day one. It would have been worth talking about day one. But it only took for Derwood O'Grady here, this Darin, to come out and let us in on all the key details that Daniel now thumbs up and says 100% that must be true and this is true. Don't you think if any of that was true, that would have been a key detail shared with us? And this would have been in a different, we would have been in a different way, a different mindset.
And I'm so glad that the kids are alive. So yeah,
Sure.
Lauren or whoever wants to ask me anything, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, Derwood, Darin.
So the two main issues, the two main points that Darin presents and he wants to impress, all of this is revolving around: one, Daniel is not involved, Malehya did not kill, and nothing bad happened to those kids. Which is probably the complete opposite. And the second one, that they're not responsible. That they're not responsible for any of it.
Relieved to have it off my back, because to tell you the truth, it's been pretty goddamn heavy for a while.
Yeah. Can Lauren ask you a question by chance, Darin?
You guys can ask me any goddamn thing,
Oh.
but I'll tell you, I don't want to be on here too long.
Don't worry.
Because the people right close to me here are upset that I'm drawing attention to my family.
Yeah.
And they don't want... They
I
don't
get
want
it.
me to draw more attention to my family much longer. So I'm very glad that this came when it did,
Yeah.
that I can put an end to this for myself and my family.
Ab-
And I'm so glad that the kids are alive. So yeah,
Sure.
Lauren or whoever wants to ask me anything, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, Derwood, Darin. Don't even worry about it. It's not even so much of a question. Me personally, I absolutely.
Now some breaking news from.
They
I
don't
get
want
it.
me to draw more attention to my family much longer.
It's because the.
And once that all flew to hell, and then it got out of my control, that's why I was sickened yesterday and the day before, because I come up. Malehya was going to talk to me. Malehya was going to,
Right.
and Malehya had one piece of information I needed to verify, just to finish off what happened. And the piece of information that I needed from her, it was directly connected to the vehicle on the side of the road. And nobody else could know that information but Malehya, because she was the only one there at that time. So it had to be Malehya to open that door.
Why is Darin sitting there? He's offering up, impressing upon an audience the mystery. So he's introducing it as a question rather than all of the factual information that he pretends he knows, in disguise and brought to you wrapped in an argument. You're absolutely lying, Darin Geddes. There's nothing about that. Nothing about this that's factual. The reality may be where we end up having Malehya's getting a plea deal, should she be able to provide the location of the bodies, right? The question that becomes premeditation or manslaughter if rugs were ingested. It'll be open to either one. The first one to talk you to, Daniel, I would expect to keep playing the game that he has. That's how he's so excited to be off the hook in what? Like, it almost seems that just the sheer action would indicate that the reason you're so happy and so nervous is that that you have guilty knowledge of whatever happened to Jack and Lilly that day. And you already admitted that. They didn't even have to hook you up to a polygraph examination for you to admit the fact that you were shitting your pants. If it was just a matter of fact and it was just part of the process, it wouldn't even be a big deal to bring up. And you're on the CBC, buddy. You're on the CBC talking about it like as if you did some great thing for humanity. Like you're the first to walk on the moon. Oh, maybe that's a bad example. Yeah, I'll pass the polygraph. Therefore, they're not looking at me any longer. How could you ever possibly say that? And why would you say that? Because you're so eager to get off the hook of the culpability and you know whatever happened to those kids, you're going to be held responsible. You're just so eager to be putting all the blame on a person that is actively ignoring any sort of media attention. Because she doesn't want to increase her workload, her anxiety level. Because the more that she's out, the more that she has to lie. Okay? The more questions that she answers publicly, the more that she would have to lie. The more that she lies, the quicker she gets caught. Can't forget, Emily, Malehya's entire camp was blaming him. So when you look at that, when you look at it that way, it seems more like something happened. You know, that neither of them was directly responsible, as in murder in that sense. Like, it seems if there's substances and they did rugs were involved, we'll say, it would spring a bit of fighting back and forth between who's more responsible in that sense. And there's probably that going on. Maybe we're looking at it in just slightly a different way. Yeah, Derwood has an excavation company. He's siding with Daniel. Daniel's out on social media saying stuff. This is all sus. Teresa, you get it now. He's talking about it because he's the one who's hid the bodies. And how do we know? Because this dude is banging Daniel's mom. You know, we don't know the entire truth, do we? We know a little bit of the stuff that he shared about who he is, but we don't know the entire truth. And he just loves to put himself in a position to be, called upon to answer any sort of questions and straighten out from his perspective this investigation. His investigation, like it's so superior to any other fucking thing that's out there in regards to a fresh case. There should be only one investigation. That's the authorities at this point in time. And you're out here really telling him that you're hiding information from him, Darin. Why would we need to go past that? Think about just that point alone. You could go on that talking point for so long. Why is that, old Derwood O'Grady? This guy is covering up, and he's getting off on it. To what degree is this guy involved? Prairie saying he's saying look over there, not here, right? There needs to be Jeannie's parrot, otherwise he gets kicked out of her RV. Big North Marty saying, yeah, I think you guys are probably, I can see it now, you guys are probably going to be right about this one. You're probably right about this. Do you believe that he's really head over heels for Malehya? Karen Jones? They drink red wine together. Make that. AB, you're too rational and too sane. It takes a thief to catch a thief. Put yourself in Daniel's boots. He is totally head over heels with Malehya. They drink red wine together. Make the beast with. The beast. Well, how sophisticated they are. Oh, wow, they have such a sophisticated love. They're fucking trailer trash, man. I'm not saying I'm any better in that sense, but in this circumstance, they sipping red wine together is nothing but nonsense. They drink it to get drunk, to make it a little more tolerable in order to get through another day in that hellhole they live in a trailer. Talking about going for a walk on the beach together. Oh, I'm so taken aback by that, you romantic fool, you. What a pig. Probably going there to get fresh with her. Yeah, Derwood is brokering a deal, but for who? That's exactly how he describes it, Miss K. I don't think he's brokering for anybody. It's how he describes the scenario, because he's fabricating in real time to a degree. If you're really admitting to you're really coming as one person, a wolf in sheep's clothing in a way. Now he's a liaison. I'd put this guy in cuffs right away. Daniel was in love with her, you could tell, until the moment he seen what she was doing. What was she doing, Amenity? What do you mean? Oh, you mean in this situation doing to him? Until he had other people tell him? Yeah, he's a love fool. Don't forget the bags of concrete that were seen and Janie filling potholes at night. Bags of concrete? Well, that smells about right. About in a situation like this, Layla. What are you talking about, these bags of concrete? Have to make themselves a little slab? A little cover-up slab? Who fills potholes late at night in their driveway? Especially in a place like that. They're so worried about the pothole at the end of the driveway, but not all of the shit on the front lawn. Oh, they don't want to fucking piss they don't want the neighbors to think any less of them, I guess. It doesn't make sense. You're eager to fill a pothole out there, covering up evidence, more like it. Oh, you sure you didn't want to do some grading out there as well? Why don't you call in Derwood O'Grady with his equipment? There are rumors she's got another guy, Amenity. Hey, Chris, Stardust. Who's the other guy, do you think? She's trying to get on with her life. She's probably pregnant again. You think? Do you think she's got, maybe she's pregnant with twins? She's getting pregnant for twins so that the judge, in this case, is going to feel some sort of sympathy for her, perhaps. She's looking ahead, foreshadowing. You have cougars and skunks here at night, yeah. Coyotes and skunks, not cougars. Unless you're counting Janie. Get the hell out of here. Are you serious, Slim? Can you send me the link to that? Not to go off topic, AB, 165 Ben Hill Road. Oh, that's not 110. 165 Ben Hill Road, Rogersville, Tennessee, is up for online auction. Live from Ben Hill Road. For how much are they asking? So you're saying, Karen, the window is broken, so I will cover it with a torn blanket before filling the potholes at night in the dark in the rain. But, why even bring it up? So you're saying Janie was walking around there with the shovel? Really, how could you believe anything? We know that they made a call to report the kids in sick for that day. So they really, from the last time that they were seen on a videotape that the RCMP confirmed, it's still anyone's guess. You can't take what Daniel says to be true. Sadly. I'm so disappointed. I'm glad I didn't bet on that. Yeah, right, Cosmic Dreamer. But May 2nd, remember. So, yeah, the days would have been getting almost longer. June 21st. It's only 21 days away. Or May 2nd, excuse me. 45 days away or so. 50. Yeah, the question is why did they bring up that conversation? You bring up something that you're hoping to cover up in a different way so that, you know, it's normalized. It's easier to talk about and people have a different understanding about what it is than the truth. It's like hiding in plain sight. It has a double entendre. Yeah, that's what they said. Well, you think that they brought up the potholes because Janie had filled them and there was new boot prints in them. But I think which would have been the matching boot print. Robin, you should be able to buy any property on Ben Hill Road with your piggy bank. What are you saying? Because they're so devalued? That's the time to buy them. You got to come in there and scoop them up when they're cheap. So you're saying there's a 12 and 18 hour gap between the last verified proof of life, Marty? So you could almost, I wonder if there's any credibility to, there's probably a lot of activity in and out of that particular trailer. With Daniel. Daniel's got something going on the down low. They say it's worth $98,000, Slim. No minimum bid. Cosmic Dreamer, he can borrow that backhoe forever. Man, this Darin Geddes, he probably is a little closer to this than we think. Not just because of the backhoe, but this guy is involved in really covering this up on their behalf. You have to know what happened first, though. Of course. You're saying Janie is a big piece in this, Amedi? In what way do you feel? Right. Right, but how are we to believe that, Amenity? The only way that this is... That's only coming from Darin. We have to believe Darin, which is... You can't believe. You can't take that with any sort of credibility. Because if her story was right in that sense, or I guess maybe they're hiding. It's not probable, though. The whole thing was supposed to be Janie was supposed to be home. So when Janie came out to the trailer after hearing the kids, it totally shocked Malehya. Maybe she came home with Darin Geddes. Darin Geddes is the boyfriend. And they together fabricated that story about her being home and witnessing something. As opposed to actually being away at that point in time. And Janie was staying with Darin Geddes in his fabulous abode, his shagnasium. And he's putting the moves on Daniel's mom. What are you saying? What are you saying, Chris? This is sacred tobacco, my friend. This is my peace pipe. Oh, yeah. I don't know how much equipment he has, Cosmic Dreamer. Do you know about his business, his excavating business? Derwood did the excavation work to put the RV on the property. Notice the fill at the back of the RV? That's Darin's work. Really? Really? How do you know that, Karen? Has he done any work for you? It's not just Darin, it's her and Dan too. Amenity, who are you believing right now? You're believing this Janie story, so you believe Derwood O'Grady in that sense? She was supposed to be on a shopping trip, you're saying? But delayed? I see. Derwood is saying the two little ones are alive because he's becoming a suspect with all his company? I think you're right there, Amenity. You don't know. You just feel like he doesn't think his niece Malehya could KI double hockey stick kids. You just think he's biased? Absolutely. He's an apologist for the suspects is what he is. He's an apologist that is introduced in himself in a confusing manner in order to try to convolute, obfuscate his real associations with the family and his purposes. There would be no other reason. And he's introduced these bullshit narratives. I would think. But you're saying, he's just an apologist for the suspects. He's up here offering a completely different narrative about this rehoming scenario, and they're just with friends at a different house right now. Wouldn't that be the first thing that you would tell cops that came to your door about where your kids were? Like, let's say in a sandbox sort of style, we made up this scenario where the cops had a call. There's 2 kids missing. The suspect, they go to the last person that saw them alive, and their first reaction is like Megan Boswell to say that, oh, they're with somebody else. That's the most rational thing to come up with, that she's sent them to be away from a particular situation that nobody around here knows about yet. It seems like a plausible deniability to a degree. And he's trying to find them, right? Savior complex in that sense. I appreciate that, Chris. I think the truth would surprise us. We should get ready for that surprise, because Derwood is probably closer to the reality of this case than we think, perhaps. It sounds to me like he knows already what it is that he's covering up. Do you know? Do you get that feeling as well? Like, I don't think he's a grand believer of the information that he's presenting in this sense. He spends more time trying to convince you through using useless terms like 1000% and ironclad rather than highlighting the reasons for withholding certain bits and pieces of information here and there, and very important information otherwise. He's dumbing down the information in which he's trying to sell you. Yeah, that's an easy cover story, I believe, Chris. I believe it's probably her initial cover story, her rapping. She had to make a big bang. She exited that day. That's highly suspicious when you don't know the facts, but she wants to present it as though the answer to that is her business and her business alone. at this point in time, and it doesn't have anything to do with the kids gone missing or having to cover your tracks or to avoid any sort of follow-up eavesdropping by the law enforcement by way of electronics, telephone, laser listener from across the street. It takes you out of the equation from the person that you need to cover up. It's never going to change the reason why you cover up. So therefore, it's probably to our best interest that we split up at this point in time. Or else we're going to incriminate ourselves. So they had to make a big exit as well. Or I could be looking too much into that. And that was just another piece of the puzzle. There really is a real divide between the two. And I don't think so. There's no such thing as a coincidence. Like, why did she leave the same day in that sense? I think one has to do with the other. Like, of all the days to leave, you chose the one that your kids ended up walking away missing into the bush, never to be seen again. Boy, that's efficiency. She's really covering a lot of bases. And not to mention now that she's given Meadow up to state custody, protective services. That says a lot about your current state of mind, sadly. Hi, Jamie. And none of it is good. Okay? So don't turn around and start crying fucking victim at this point in time when you look this level of suspect. It's impossible. Your silence speaks to your level of culpability in all of this. All of it. Yeah, I think she's just another talking head brought to you by the people who have a lot to lose in this situation when it comes to this Haley. Like, any information is always going to be regarded, but take it as you want it. It's not telling us anything that we don't already know to a degree. This just reoccurring theme of rug use. Karen says Darren's dumbing down the information. He's trying to sell you because he knows he's more intelligent than you. Well, in that moment, that's where he's putting himself. Yeah, it's on purpose, right, Karen? You know what I mean? He's doing it to such an extent it makes him look like a suspect, as in the only person that would know this information would be a person who had the two children or knows where they are at that point in time. And Darin speaks in those terms in and out of that quite often in these claims, which is highly suspect. The way that he's I think they call it in literature owning the narrative. He's owning the narrative as opposed to just being a simple participant in it. Okay? He's owning the narrative rather than just being a simple participant in this particular narrative. I don't want to get too much outside into academia, but that's what I believe that they're referencing it as. So, regardless of what this douchebag says, the fact that he's doing that tells you one of two things. He's already in the know, or he's a complete, weirdo. But he's gotten far with the information that he has in the circumstance, with acknowledgement from Malehya and Daniel, which is huge. Which is huge. If they're both acknowledging, then you know for a fact that they all know about each other in this particular narrative that's being sewn together out here in the public. The question that none of us can verify is, does that line up with what the RCMP know at this point in time? They want you to assume it does. But the suspects want you to assume a lot more than just that as well, too, right? Like they have nothing to do with it. And I'm not trying to frame it like these are evil villains in this circumstance trying to get away with anything, of course, but it's where it leads us. This is where the information is leading us. So the next question is how, what sort of culpability does this Haley have in this circumstance? She seems to be in the all-knowing and in the business already of what's going on with a household who has 2 missing kids and a whole lot of lies and deceit at hand. So, you can come out on TikTok and make your say, absolutely, time will tell, right? So, we take it one step at a time, one day at a time. We've went full circle with this Darin Geddes, unfortunately. Is it going to turn into another scenario where it's just being introduced by way of the suspects because they in the background have a bunch of individuals that are just as gullible as they are? Because a lot of the family will believe whatever they have to say. You would think, or there's a high probability of it. Oh, Karen Jones. How do you know Derwood? You got in his head something fierce. The main question is to move forward, says Amenity. The truth, did Janie actually hear the kids last? Is Janie the last to witness the kids alive? That's a key question. I think the more that you think about that, the less and less that you're going to trust Darin Geddes. But I guess that's a question. It's still on the list. You're right. You're right. Because if none of that's true, then all eyes go back to Daniel and Malehya, and something happening to those children. How do we know that they didn't die from carbon monoxide poisoning in that sense? You got a wood burning stove in there, you got a coal burner in there trying to heat the house, and you close the trailer up, and all of a sudden, the kids were sleeping on the floor, and the next thing that they weren't. You don't believe any of them, Jamie? And people are right. They're right to be skeptical about Janie not wanting to let the police search her trailer. Instead of offering up reasons to why, think about how self-centered that is of you in an emergency situation for police to go through procedure and getting that out of the way, as in you have nothing to hide in that moment in time. Well, I don't know. You've never heard from Janie, though, Amenity. How can you believe Janie? Janie's never come forward with any sort of statement. You're hearing people talk about what she said, right? They could be feeding you a line of shit. No place that I've seen Janie has made any statement. I've heard that she didn't want them in there because she had a pit bull in there. I heard them talking about it, but that's not verified, right? We don't know anything. We don't know any of that to be true. Let's just talk. Right? Do you think, Treese, those 2 could have went missing Thursday afternoon till Friday early because we can't believe anything that Daniel or Malehya say at this point in time because they're both equally culpable? And the only thing that eats up time and is their only option is to sit there and play and point their finger at each other, talking about how, how suspicious the other person was, considering the great mystery at hand that nobody can quite figure out. Get fucked that, that this Daniel is the victim in all of this. That's just a distraction. I believe it's probably more of a distraction than being factual. That she or somebody was so resentful towards Daniel that they are going to go to the extent of framing him in this circumstance, especially the lack of sophistication I get from this family. They're more likely just to act rather than conspire to get away with any great Hollywood level fucking scenario here. It still goes back to just rhyming with a lie that they're initially going with. And they both have a reason to have this false narrative out there. Their form of deflection. So no matter what it is and what people talk about, it's anything but either one of them being directly responsible for what it is that they're responsible for. And that's the deaths and, in effect, subsequent cover-up of wherever the bodies are at this point in time. Yeah, 12 to 18 hour gap, Marty. A 12 to 18 hour gap from verified sighting at the mall as confirmed by the RCMP. Now add that Tina to the mix, the Rugs allegedly, and you have a lot of time to do whatever they may have done. Right, exactly. And cover it up. Everybody on that, they'll probably find a way to charge everybody on that property, including Janie. So she would even be pulled into the mix or paranoid that she's going to be held somewhat responsible because it's all gone down on your property. More of a reason just to fabricate a story that benefits the living and not the ones that have already deceased. It's another one for Karen Jones. Another one for Karen Jones because she seems to know all this. She seems to know all this. You, Anon. Anon, you live fairly close to this. Probably didn't want people to know that. Sorry for the docs. Sorry about that. Derwood claims it's a multi-Yorkie. A mutt-Yorkie? It's probably... it's probably like some weird hybrid fucking, space alien like dog. Derwood claims it's a mutt Yorkie. Oh, a mutt Yorkie. What are we talking about? Like a little Yorkie like this with a little face? It's a Yorkie pit bull. It's a Yorkie that got raped by a pit bull. How did those two get hooked up? I wonder. What happened there? My dog came home one day and it was all knocked up by some rando pit bull on the street. What does that thing look like? Holy mackerel. Some really angry, yappy dog. Little Yorkies are those pretty little white things, aren't they? They're toy dogs. Okay, Anon. At night in the dark, you can hide a lot of stuff out in the country. Oh, absolutely, especially on that property. Like, if you ever needed to hide a body, that property is pretty, rich in areas to hide bodies. Especially that whole countryside right there. Even more so if you've got a backhoe, Derwood. Derwood is banging Janie, and he has got all the motivation in the world to try to get everybody off in that circumstance. He's the love fool. Karen Jones is saying the Yorkie is Logan's dog. Why would Logan's dog be there? Was Logan there too? That will be the next thing to come out, emerge from the mist of mystery. Yeah. So what are you saying then? That there was, there's always a get together and they're all, partying together in circumstances and they'll want to point blame over the lack of responsibility by the bar owner type of scenario? Well, hopefully when we get there, it'll be quickly. And so you believe this Haley, and she's coming out with factual information. So this information is her perspective, I guess. They were there I wonder. So, I mean, what is she saying the reason why they were there? Let me know in my chat. But for some reason, she suspected there to be substances involved, and she was accusing Daniel there, and that's what led to the confrontation in the driveway. So maybe she knows a lot more than we don't in some area. Why was she putting that onto Daniel and not Malehya in that circumstance? Ever notice Dan always talked about water? Yeah, why exactly was he up to those multi-different creeks, multi-different times? Why was he jumping around like a chicken with his head cut off? These fucking guys, you can't take anything that they have to say as truth in that circumstance, can you? God darn it. Why can't they throw cuffs on these guys yet? There's a lot of confusion around the dog. Maybe a white fluffy thing Derwood was describing was Janie's mutt, not the dog. Or Janie's mitt. You made me read that one. There's a typo, I believe, maybe. Something happened Thursday afternoon till Friday. That's how I feel. Teresa? They panicked. The kids were supposed to be in school. Yeah, they needed to buy themselves a little bit of time. Right, you would imagine so. The first thing that you would do is buy yourself some time in order to try to figure out how the fuck you're going to get out of this mess. That's what one would assume. David saying your wife says Haley's a rat. I would think so too. She's Malehya's best friend, Mandy? Probably. You go and do my talking for me. Oh, she'll be all biased. She'll be doing her a real solid. Oh my God, she's being used. Willingly. I'm just such a good friend. I want a little bit of notoriety around this case. You thought Daniel Martel's father is dead and that's how the property became old Janie's? I heard that too. Now all of a sudden the dude is living on the back of the property? I mean, why does this story keep on changing and changing and changing? Probably because they're telling lies. That's what I would think. Yeah, David, maybe it was just because the kids were missing. That's a possibility too. I mean, that's the time for it. But I think she was alluding to the fact that he was tweaking out. He was high on his own supply in that sense, Easy-E would say. Well, there was 2 PD days there as well mixed in, so it's funny that their defense always starts with the facts in the case. And they want you to believe whatever last known fact that the RCMP is exactly where their mindset is as well. You would think that it would be a little bit of different if should it be a legitimate scenario. Janie inherited the trailer and the property from her father. It's a Mackenzie land, Janie's little kingdom. Oh, okay, I see. And Daniel's dad is just a fuck buddy that hangs out in the backwoods. That's handy. Haley found planted of the blanket in an area cops searched. Mandy. Haley's the one who found / planted the blanket. And she's the one out here talking all about this piece of evidence. Like, why don't you start talking about what you're alluding to instead of, finding this piece of evidence that was hanging in a tree? If it was in a tree, a fucking raccoon got at it. Why does anybody care? Why would anybody care? The fact that there's a blanket and you want to be relevant? That's nonsense. Mel Wilkie says snorting in the bathroom with everyone there. So someone that turned up brought the rugs because poor Daniel needed substances to get through his disaster. So he's an active addiction, is what you're saying. That would be why he looks so funny. He's got these bug eyes all the time, acting zoned out, yet taking such great, beautiful shots in front of the camera. Just making myself suspicious. And I think she did it when Janie pointed out the RCMP. She heard the kids and then said Malehya. That's what started the family fight. No, it's not a new claim. It's just talking about that argument that we knew that was there, mentioned in the news, right? That was the first interesting point to this entire case, is that there was an argument in the driveway and police had to break up the rigmarole, and we were wondering what it was all about. So these are little quips that we get later on down the line as time goes by that stick out to us. Well, that's why it's relevant. So allegedly. So this is one person's perspective that was there that day. So it was about rugs. So just for a moment, we can just recognize the fact that it's being brought up yet again and again. Now, is it by the same people, Haley and other people that were probably partying there or supplying the place? Who knows? I don't know. But it's indicating back of extreme deception, I would say, by way of the parents and their extreming and decepting, lying for the reasons that just to cover up their own culpability in getting away with the bodies on whatever happened to Jack and Lilly. That's the simplest answer to all of this. With the people that are already involved. Now, is there other people involved? I don't know. Yet. There's photos of the blanket in the trailer's window. It wasn't Lily's. It may have been like years ago. It was an old blanket that they're covering in front of the window. And why is the evidence significant? That's the next key thing. Because it is in the I mean, the kids would have been playing in the woods presumably for a good amount of time in the previous seasons leading up to that point. So it could have been up there from any moment. It might not be significant to the scenario at hand, other than you wanting to steal some sort of spotlight at a later point in time to plant false evidence, as though there's some sort of sign of the kids being in the bush, recently. No matter what, I don't think that the cops will ever just sit there and go. They'll let you talk and talk about how you think the other person is suspicious in all ways and every way that you need. But at the end of the day, it's not going to get away from the questions that they have for you. Why are they letting Daniel just float around at this point in time? Probably because they don't have enough evidence yet. Daniel's so eager to relay the information that he believes the cops told him. Don't think that that's 100% true. How couldn't you be responsible at this point in time? Like, how couldn't you feel that you were somewhat responsible for whatever happened to those kids if it did indeed happen? Even if they walked into the bush and they disappeared, you would still feel absolutely horrible. And you talk about all the things that you wish that you would have done differently, like lock the back door. You had another lock on the back door, had double doors, locked them in their bedrooms at night so they wouldn't get away, been up already and fed the kids. There's none of that sort of talk. You would have thought if this was a genuine scenario, there's where your grief and guilt would come from. But they don't mention that one time. And he's talking about this Netflix documentary as though that's going to be a positive thing. Don't you think that they're going to make you look like a fool in all of this? You're so eager for there to be a mystery and for this false narrative to be picked up and taken that you can't wait for there to be a movie to really sell it to a greater audience. Therefore, hopefully get you off the hook a little more. And a little bit of recognition because you want to seem like the hero, Daniel. Yeah. Daniel and Daryl would love a Netflix special on them. The most attention they'd ever receive in their hillbilly existence, Layla's saying. Oh, I want to be Bo and Luke. What do they think it's going to be, like the Dukes of Hazzard? Come on. Derwood said the fight wasn't about Ruggs, but instead about Malehya being she didn't get designer clothes at the mall on Thursday. Was that her priority, was it? How do you know that? Or is that just the talk you're saying? Okay. Oh. Well, they're expensive, girl. Sounds like money grab. Daniel isn't working. He wants it for attention. You would think so. He's eager to get started on the rights to this production. Get me some cash flow. Danny is unraveling. Well, he's unraveling, Karen, because he said so much. At some point, you would think that they're going to have all kinds of questions based upon the things that you have shown. Right? You would, at some point, either they already know or he's going to have a lot to answer to and then a little bit further investigate or further questioning at some point. That's going to be, unnecessary, you would thought. Why would you really do that to yourself? Who knows? Danny is unraveling. He might have to tell on Malehya to keep his hero status. He will say, yeah, that's a good point. It was me who came out and told. Yeah, the first one. You're going to be the first one. We'll get the first one. You might get some sort of deal in that circumstance, I would expect. It'll be a reality show called The Real Housewives of Pictou County. You would probably be in that as well, Karen. Janie would be in that. I'm not sure, Raven, if he has a boat or why he's talking all about water. Well, we'll pick up the conversation a little bit later tonight, guys. I'm going to end it here and go make us some lunch and do some exercise. And we'll be back a little bit later on to pick up the conversation. Don't go anywhere because this is part 1 of 2, all right? So stick around and keep an eye out around 6 p.m. Eastern tonight.